This is the process shot. I'm Michael. I'm stuck in a haunted movie theater, and I've seen Crush, a new teen romantic comedy from Sammi Cohen. It follows Paige, a high school senior whose coming of age storyline involves describing her happiest memory for a college application, which could easily be when she first met Gabby, a classmate for whom she's had a crush on since elementary school. She inadvertently gets her chance to pursue her feelings further when she's accused of being King Pun, a campus graffiti artist, and is forced to join the school's track team to find their identity. Gabby is co-captain of the team, but Paige ends up having to be trained by her sister, AJ. As time goes on, however, Paige finds herself drawn closer to AJ, even though she may not be entirely open about everything herself. Or, well, it's not that dramatic, really. When it comes down to the finer details, this is pretty much a standard summer rom-com with a rainbow coat of paint. It's not quite a very good coat of paint either, since there are some cracks that are visible. That is, it puts a lot of focus and development on how most of the characters are of various shades of LGBT, and how the main romantic storyline is a homosexual relationship. But once it gets all that set up out of the way, it pretty much falls back on standard genre tropes, and most especially a basic plot structure. It almost feels as if this script were a rewrite of something deemed too generic or uninteresting, and thus was shelved, though it could still just be how much of the three-act formula can be felt in this movie. What's more, once you get past the first scenes and everything that seems unique becomes normalized, there isn't much else to look at here. I mean, everybody is having fun, but mostly because all they have is their dialogue. The characters are pretty much defined by their archetypal roles, relationships with others, and simpler quirks that make them easy to identify in a crowd, all of which comes at the cost of any major character arcs to follow. Those who do get character arcs, outside of anything explicitly romantic, don't get them developed well at all over the film. One example being Gabby and AJ's relationship as sisters in a high school environment where one is popular and one is not. Paige's own story about trying to unmask King Pun is pretty much set aside in favor of other romantic antics. The technical elements of the movie are also pretty standard, which is to say that it's pretty bland across the board. Most cinematography here is flat and uninteresting, with a few close-ups for emotional effect, but otherwise not doing anything special. The film's soundtrack and musical choices are pretty much a Riot Girl playlist of modern or classic indie punk songs, though it seems more about putting them in the movie than making their lyrics and themes apply to anything actually happening on screen. The film's color design and its editing choices are where things do take a more creative turn, though it seems only sparingly so. Editing, for example, wavers between being static or somewhat jumpy, and active or smoothly moving between shots, generally leaning towards one or the other depending on the emotional tone of the scene. It almost goes a bit too extreme into either end, between over-stylized edits with seamless transitions between unrelated objects, or just being so standardized and simplified that it borders on annoyance. Color design is also a bit of the same, usually getting creative during romantic segments and cutting down the lighting into something more stylized, but otherwise being unremarkable in its usual application. All in all, Crush is a rom-com that seems less about trying to make a stylistic name for itself and more about working out whatever it can from its storyline. But, despite this, it also puts more of its weight on the primary idea of a queer rom-com in a sea of so many straight stories, when it doesn't really do anything with the concept despite how much it emphasizes that. Granted, it may be normalizing the topic, but with how much it points out these ideas at the start, it puts the idea that they will be the main talking point into the viewer's mind, when the truth is a bit further away from that. Crush, Sammi Cohen, 2022. 2 stars. I wouldn't really recommend it. It's not gonna kill you if you watch it, but it's still not that great. That's it for this review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Seriously, this movie feels like they wanted to have something cute and comfy for queer people to enjoy, but instead it just kind of feels like pandering. At least up until it remembers that it needs to be a movie where other things happen.